Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Paper Reviews. I'm Astrid. Today we're going to be talking about All Out. So I have to bring a special guest, none other than my friend Jose. How are you, Jose?
I'm good, Astrid. How are you?
Good, and I see you have already some fans here in the comments. You got Parrish here.
I know.
There you go. There you
Been a little
go.
while since we've gotten to do something together, so it's nice.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I knew I was gonna do this kind of by myself. I realized a little bit last minute, so I kind of reached out to my little circle on Twitter, and somebody responded. And I'm glad it was Jose because we haven't done something in quite a bit at this point.
Yeah, I think the last thing we did together was around WrestleMania season, and
Yeah,
yeah, definitely
that's
long
true.
overdue. And I mean, what a show to do it for.
Yeah, it's like and like I was telling you, it's like I'm used to my NXT shows that end between, around like 10-ish, maybe 11, not almost at midnight Eastern time. But still it was all out, we had to talk about it somehow with everything that's happened this past week with AEW. So I figured let's start over with the 0 hour part of the show. I didn't realize they were gonna open with this match, but they opened with the over the budget. It was a charity battle royal. I kind of listed the people that I could remember seeing. It was a lot of people in the ring at once by the time the entrances happened. But I know we had best friends. It was Dalton Castle there. The boys were outside supporting him. We have Scorpio Sky because I feel like he's been absent from TV for a bit. I know he got like a little bit of a video package recently, but even then he's been like off TV for a while. We had the Mogul Embassy, and then just the surprise entrance for me, at least, it was Hagman Adam Page, who was the last entrance for the match in itself. Already in the ring, we have Serpentico, Tony Nese, Action Andretti, Sean Spears, Commander, Aussie Open. We had Daniel Garcia, Jake Hager, Angela Parker, Mark Menard. Uh, we had we had a little spot out towards like the beginning of the match. It was that sports entertainment spot, as we like to call it. It was definitely Sean Spears and Daniel Garcia just trading off dance moves in the middle of the ring there for the crowd to enjoy. But what I liked about it was when Kyle eliminated Daniel, he started doing the dance himself too. But I think it was a lot of, let's say, a lot of chaos because we had a lot of people in the ring. But the winner was none other than Adam Page. What did you think about overall with this chaos and how everything went through here?
Yeah, I mean, I've always associated All Out to always have some sort of a battle royal, whether it's like the traditional
Mhm.
casino style, like where we've seen like some big surprises show up, like when we had Rui Soho debut back in 2021. I mean, this one, it was nice that they kind of had that charitable element into it too, which is always still kind of funny that they have like that as a stipulation for something that's predetermined. But I mean, it was nice to just kind of see who else was around and just like have a fun battle royal for the sake of having one because it feels like a lot of them just are few and far between now. So for certain, I think it makes sense to have Adam Page go over on this one to give him something to do. And I do like that later in the show they did announce that it was going to be for the Chicago Public Education Fund as well too. So it does show that they're very grateful to have had the time that they have had in the city there, that they kind of make a second home for AEW.
Mhm. Yeah, and to me, it's nothing new in that sense of it because Adam Page himself used to be a teacher, so it does make sense for him to
Mm.
go towards the public education for the fund as well. But yeah, I like how they announced it later on as like the donation from TK and even Adam Page for the public school funds there in Chicago, which is pretty nice to like hear. I like this battle royale because something that I definitely missed from All In though. I definitely was hoping they would do something like this for the pre-show 0 hour there as well, but I'm glad they did it for this one here because we had so many people that could have been battle for battle royal, and I'm glad they did it on this pay-per-view in itself because we had so many people here that we hadn't seen it at all in. So I'm glad this was done to begin with.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a good way to make use of all the different talent that they could have had there. And I do still agree that they could have had one at all and maybe one for the women's division if they were going to do one for the men's division tonight. I mean, it's kind of the caveat of having two different big pay per views a week apart. It's just kind of what goes to what and what doesn't. So, yeah.
And as Parachutes already started with the punk comments, so might as well like go through. No punk can finally get educated from a local school. Well, we're gonna get to that a little bit later.
I was going to say I had my shade sound effect ready for that comment, but I don't know what the drill.
Right after this one, we had the trios match with the ladies that was just announced, I believe, like a day or two ago at this point. It was Mercedes Martinez, Diamante, and Athena versus Willow, Hikaru Shida, and Sky Blue. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was sometime last week. Tony Khan had the media call, and he was asked. I think it was by Nikki from of Women's Wrestling Talk. So shout out to Nikki for the question. They were asking about the status of Athena for the pay per view, and the answer was mostly that it depended on Billy Starks if she got cleared or not. They would have done Billy versus Athena, and she didn't get cleared, then they would have had backup plans for Athena. So I'm guessing this was the backup plan for Athena. But I did like having Billy in like in her corner and I will say towards the back there's the entrance was happening, just cheering her on. And the girls were like, no, let's not bring her in. And Athena's like having a tantrum as they're going down to ringside. I like those little details between all of them in this part of it because we had Mercedes and Diamante with matching gear, but they're not agreeing with Athena bringing in her minion Billy Starks to the ringside there too. No, I think overall the match was. I think they had a good amount of time in here to give us of like a little bit of both teams in here, and obviously we had the hometown person here as Sky Blues from Chicago there as well, so she definitely got a pop there from the crowd. Um, what the part that caught my attention more than anything during this match was that face off between Athena and Shida. Like, definitely great. It made me think of like I would like to see this match with the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship. What did you think about that face off?
Oh gosh, I mean that seems to be the big money match right now, especially because they're still working on whatever it is with Billy and Athena, kind of as a tandem unit with the whole minion thing. I do think it's also very noteworthy that you did have Mercedes and Diamante just drop off the apron, leaving Athena to her lonesome, which makes total sense when you think about the fact that Athena's never been one for an ally, and the fact that she kind of by de facto has Billy Starks and kind of molding her and guiding her kind of shows like, wow, I really am entirely alone. But I would love to see something like, I don't know if there's going to be another Ring of Honor pay-per-view coming up, but seeing Hikaru Shida versus Athena is definitely a big money match. I'm all for it. I mean, we saw how great Willow versus Athena was for God, what the heck was the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view?
It
But
was Death Before
Death
Dishonor.
Before
Mhm.
Dishonor. Thank you. I was stalling the name, but like, I mean, we've seen like when they have a chance to have a spectacle, a main event match, they always
Mhm.
deliver. And Athena's probably been the most consistent champion since Ring of Honor has been under the Tony Khan era. So it's good that she was able to get on the card. Do I wish she would have had an actual title defense? Of course I do. But I
Yeah.
mean, for making lemons out of lemonade, at least we got to kind of like pull at the strings of like the fact that she is so full of herself that it kind of came in bitter in the end for this one.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too because it makes you think of like when it comes to Ring of Honor, I feel like the one that has been featured and highlighted like consistently has been Athena. So I was hoping she would have a match on the main card and only to get a trios match on the 0 hours on something I expected for the champion that's been killing it so often on her brand in there versus. And not only that, by getting a last minute type of match as well, it's another thing that was like, that's interesting. She's the only like champion from Ring of Honor not on the main card, but I thought that point was interesting to know. But I'm glad they did add a second women's match because we didn't get that before. So I'm glad this ended up happening towards the end, even though I wonder how far along they were planning this, but I'm guessing we had to do more than anything with Billy getting clear, which she didn't. So
Hmm.
that was, I guess, mostly the reason why. But other than that, I wish she would have been on the main card. That's the only, I would say, the only complaint I had about it.
Yeah, and then something else I noticed too is that this card had the women's world champion from Ring of Honor. They had the AEW world champion. They had the Ring of Honor world champion all in action and non-title matches, and they had Saraya, the women's world champion for AEW, as a manager.
Mhm.
So it's just odd to go from like how like hyped up All In was and like seeing some of those championships change hands and just having no singles world title presence on the show at all, which is
Yeah.
very crazy to think of for a modern wrestling pay-per-view. But at the end of the day, with how everything kind of played out, it actually kind of made sense for the show to end the way it did with the title
Mhm.
that it did because it elevates it to a sense. But
Yeah.
definitely an interesting choice to not have any of those championships on the line tonight.
Mm. Yeah, that's Ed is saying. Wasn't Mercedes and Diamante feuding with Chris Statlander? Yeah, that's something that I think there was a piece. I don't know if it was. I believe it was a women's wrestling talk
Mhm.
that they had mentioned about that end of it because it just seemed like they were feuding with Chris. So we were thinking one of them was gonna face her, but then we had Ruby of a sudden. So that was definitely something that was kind of expected because it just built up like a week or two ago, I believe. Oh, actually, it got built up a little bit before All In, and I thought it was gonna be announced for All In, but it got announced a lot for All Out. But yeah, the timeline within Ruby being involved in the match versus Mercedes and Diamante was definitely one that was like odd for me as well. Um,
Mhm.
And that's what just saying, yeah, too many titles I do not get used to in wrestling. Yeah, to me, just that
Agreed.
the structure of it doesn't make a lot of sense when you have one that could have been an all in and you put an all out for, like, for example, the TBS championship, but then you have most of the cards that I feel like Ring of Honors. They're just like, I think that was like a major thing that was kind of weird to think about it later on, seeing all the card all together.
Yeah, and the weird thing is that I don't know if it's that it diminishes kind of like the titles that AEW has for like their proper roster because I mean at this point I hate to say it, but Ring of Honor does feel more like their I don't want to say developmental, but definitely their secondary brand
Mhm.
by extension.
Yeah.
Just the fact that we're at a show that's 13 matches deep and there's still so many non-title matches that you have champions that are just waiting to be booked and they're not. So
Yeah.
again,
That was
it's an
definitely
interesting
interesting.
choice.
Yeah. And to end the zero hour, we have JF Jarrett, Stamnan Singh, and Jay Letha versus the Acclaim and Daddy Ass. I think this was for the Trios Championship. I don't remember seeing
Mhm.
the graphic in itself, but then the match was, I don't want to say random, but it definitely felt awkward in the timing of it too, because I'm watching on it on YouTube. They only had like probably 15 minutes, 10 minutes until the card was starting. And then by the time the match is over, they only had like 2 minutes left of it. So I was like, what was this? Um, I did like the touch of having as we call him Daddy S coming in and saying like he's gonna bring a referee and he brings Audrey because you know we have Karen Jarrett on the other side and they had that little face up in the ring there too. At one point that is Robin who's at ringside as well just hit Simmons singing with the chair. I mean with the guitar it was. It was one of those things that made later Audrey turning around to just be like, "What happened?" But she sees other pieces in the ring and just, I guess, pretending it didn't even happen. But I guess it was just that one spot because I believe it was Jeff Jarrett that wanted Darius Rodman to get involved in the match somehow. So I think that's mostly why this is happening to begin
Mhm.
with. But I definitely felt like kind of like a random part of the match. And was that something similar for you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand the callback of having Audrey be in the ring, obviously, with that six-man tag that they did with Karen as well. But I think the weirder part of it was just why are we using Dennis Rodman in a wrestling capacity in any way, shape, or form in the year 2023? We saw how well it went in WCW. We saw how well it won in Hulk Hogan Celebrity Championship Wrestling. Like, why are we still going back to Dennis Rodman?
I have no idea. Good
I,
question.
yeah. I mean the acclaim wins, LOL, is basically all I
Mm,
have to say about that.
yeah, basically. Yeah, I think it was. I don't know if it's a reference to Chicago aside from that as well too in the beginning. And as saying, how is Jeff Jarrett still relevant in 2023? That is my question as well because how is he getting this and happening for him at this point? Um, and especially a missed opportunity, in my opinion, of separating Ring of Honor from AEW and then when it literally purchased. Yeah, that's what something that I thought of like from the beginning. I thought maybe All In would have been more for AEW and All Out would have been for Ring of Honor, kind of dividing that type of way. But either way, it didn't happen. We definitely got a mix of it here. But to begin the main show, we had MJF and Adam Cole versus John Silver and Ryan and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. What I liked about this was the continuation here, the progression within the story of MJF and Adam Cole. As we saw with All In, we had MJF with that neck injury, and he keeps giving us this and this type of match as well because there's a cheap shot to his neck, and so we definitely see him going back to the neck
Mhm.
injury. And the commentary also highlights that as well. And at one point, he's definitely like, I gets taken out of the match. The thing that the part that made me laugh, even though I shouldn't laugh, is that Adam Cole goes, "Where does it hurt?" He goes, "My neck," but he's literally holding his neck as it's happening. I'm like, why would you ask him where it hurts if he's holding his neck out? Like, of all
Yeah.
things. But now I like this part of like having MJF leave the match for a bit of time here, and then Adam Cole just fending for himself here versus the Dark Order. That was definitely interesting. I was definitely hoping I know it probably wasn't gonna happen, but I still had a little bit of hope this was the moment for the Dark Order to get those tag team championships. I think that would have been great for them to have in this and imagine that kind of have MJF blame Cole even though MJF was out of the match in this position here. But yeah, we had Evil Uno even going after Adam Cole as this was happening as well when he was by
Yeah.
himself. Then we get that big pop from MJF when he comes back for that kangaroo kick that hit on both of them. But at the end, we still have MJF and Cole retaining to further the storyline between both of them, as we probably think something's going to happen sooner or later between them again for that world championship. But I still think it's interesting, like seeing him there, like obviously with the neck injury, trying to get out of the ring. And to put it in here and as well, it's, as he's going up the ramp, we have Joe coming there for his match with Shane
Mhm.
Taylor, and Joe just shoves him, having a callback to when MJ was a security guard and Joe just shoved him. So that was definitely something that was interesting because I didn't think that was something going to happen during the pay-per-view in itself. And then having Joe and MJF being separated because MJF went after him, and then Cole. I think Cole was telling him not to do it,
Mhm.
but then he still went for it to go after Joe. So I definitely like that call back to what happened or how it was before when MJF was an extra too. What did you think of that storyline progression with the neck injury here?
No, I think it was definitely smart to have the injury as kind of a point of like definitely allowing for Dark Order to get like a lot more control and then to have that big pop for the comeback. But my big thing, even going back to All In, is just I don't understand why they beat Aussie Open for the tag titles to begin with. It just feels like for the story that they were trying to tell of like, can they coexist? I don't think
Mhm.
they needed to have the actual tag team championships, considering they didn't get the AEW tag team championships. They got the Ring of Honor. And then on top of that, we've seen, like, especially with this match telling the story of Max's neck, you think about Roderick Strong and the fact that he's still braced up and trying to really show Cole that he does not have your best interests. So it's just very telling that it's Adam Cole was very much concerned with it in this match for this partner, but maybe not so much with Roderick Strong,
Mhm.
which is making me wonder what is going to be the culmination because I don't know what else we're going to have left this year. I mean, we have like Wrestle Dream or whatever the October pay per view is. I'm sure we still have Full Gear, but I can't see this realistically going out the rest of the year. Something's going to have to give and get to a breaking point just because I totally understand like the odd couple dynamic as a tag team because we've seen it happen so many times in WWE just because they don't have actual tag teams. That's a different story for a different day, but really being able to use what ultimately should have been just a fun tongue-in-cheek tournament between the number one contender and the world champion to actually culminate in a really good decisive world championship match that we did not end up having because it ended in a roll-up.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot more interesting to see what's going to come in the next month or two to see what's next because now we have the X factor of Samoa Joe in the background because
Yeah.
I mean, as long as he's television champion, I mean, clearly they don't have any issues with anyone being a double champion, but it's going to be interesting to see if his feud with MJF is going to be for the world title or to see what happens before then.
Yes, Ed is saying Adam finally paying attention to the neck awareness week. Yeah, he's a little bit too late for
Mhm.
that one. Um, also going back to Ed here, Dark Ward is one of the biggest wasted opportunities at AEW along with Sonic Kiss. Yeah, I definitely seen the news of Sonic Kiss and
Yeah.
not getting their contract renewed. So definitely interesting moving forward. I think Sonic is somebody that could be highlighted very well on Impact. So I hope they end up in
I
Impact
hope,
somehow.
yeah, I hope Sunny Kiss does
That's
end up
great.
in Impact. I know she's just gotten, it's crazy to think that after that one match with Kenny, like they did absolutely nothing with her for literally 2 years. Like it's just the biggest waste of a signing just because there's so much potential, so much athleticism. They could have done almost anything with her and then they just did nothing. So I hope that she enjoys her free agency if she chooses to sign wherever she wants to sign and is utilized the way that she deserves to be showcased. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I definitely could see a lot of potential with Impact and the people that we have over there in the Knockouts division to being involved here. So it's like you never know. I think it's one of those that could be a great opportunity there. But yeah, I don't like how they just silently removed Sonic Kiss from the website and just like this is when they started speculating about it. But Fightful did confirm that the contract expired. They just didn't renew it. And I was enjoying the tag team they were having with Joey Janela as well. I just like I figured with Joey leaving that was gonna end there as well.
Yeah. And that
And
feud they had on Dark with that street fight too,
yeah,
like that's probably one of the best AW
yeah,
Dark matches. If you're able to go back on YouTube and find it, it's just it's a shame that we did not get that same level of care and like creativity actually get to be shown on main TV. It was just on the YouTube program, but
yeah,
it is what it is, and we could only look forward to the future.
yeah. So as we mentioned, we after Joe had the altercation with MJF, we ended up having some more Joe versus Shane Taylor for the World TV Championship. this was definitely that was those very hard hitting to begin with. It's like that back and forth they have was just incredible. I couldn't even keep up with them because it was one thing after another, one thing after another, and it just I can't even describe how hard hitting it was because I could feel everything that was happening that
Yep.
was hurting me in here.
Also started
Um,
the motif of big
uh,
meaty men slapping meat tonight.
yeah, that started the theme of it with this match as well. But I like how they mentioned that he's just a few days away from actually beating Jelito. I believe that's the longest reigning TV champion. That's
Yeah.
another point they mentioned during commentary as well. That's another thing that made me realize from the beginning. He's definitely not losing it tonight. But still, I think it was a good showcasing for Shane Taylor and a great. I feel like a good back and forth between them, and it just made me think back. It was like, how are we gonna add Joe to the mix between the MJF and Adam Cole situation as well because I like that little face off they had there before the match started. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the match. Just obviously figured from the get go that Joe was winning. How about
Yeah,
you?
and it's still crazy to think that throughout this reign that Joe also had a brief stint with the TNT Championship feuding with Wardlow
Mhm.
too. So it's crazy to think that while he might have maintained a double championship, he's on pace to. I mean, he's going to eventually hold the record for the longest reigning Ring of Honor World Television Champion of all time. So deservingly so, considering how much he put into that promotion in the early days and just kind of what we're seeing from the current product as well. It's been great to see him just kind of utilized in a way that we probably wouldn't have gotten if he ended up staying with WWE again, just because it seemed like he was going more broadcaster, more like general manager. But Samoa Joe is still top notch in the ring, and tonight was a perfect example of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Right into this, we dive into Luchasaurus versus Darby Allin for the TNT Championship. Darby Allin has Nick Wayne in his corner. Luchasaurus has Christian in his corner as obviously the quote unquote champion as well. Um, I did like having those moments of like Christian getting too close to Luchasaurus and telling him like you can just finish him. You can finish him off and break his back, and he kept yelling those commands during the match as well. Um, and then we had so many moments like Luchasaurus rubbing like Darby Allin's blood in his own face before he chopped him in the corner. That's definitely one. I was like, oh, I can hear the crowd's reaction to that one was definitely a big one. But yeah, we had a face off at ringside between Christian and Nick Wayne as well. It was definitely a distraction for Darby there at one point. Um, that was one of those that was like he had Nick Wayne with the chair for the concerto. It's definitely something that distracted Darby for quite a while there too. And at one point when the Darby and Nick are facing each other at ringside, we definitely we had Darby dive into Christian to like end that for the moment, but it was definitely
Mhm.
momentarily. And yeah, the distraction is definitely what helped Luchasaurus retain. And just when Christian's going after Darby for doing the concerto again, a lot of the locker room comes in to break that up, and Luchasaurus and Christian just get out of the scene there too. Definitely something that I expected there. I didn't think Darby was going to win the championship, and having Nick there actually progresses the storyline between both of them, as as the way as he has been like a mentor towards the Nick Wayne at this point. Yeah, I really enjoyed this match as well. A lot of that back and forth there too, and just I there was so many points of like they gave me that feeling as if Darby was gonna win it, but he actually and I actually knew he wasn't. But they gave you a little bit of false hope at some points.
Yeah, that and I will say, like they are. Oh, Darby is always very creative in like certain spots and matches, just really taking a massive toll on his body. I mean, the spot with the steel steps on his already entered back from the casket match at All In, and then having Luchasaurus step on the steps to get back into the ring on top of that. Just, I don't know how he can tolerate so much. I know, I mean, he even kind of says it himself. He's there for a good time, not a long time, but just that is I don't think I could ever even one conjure an idea of something like that in a match, but also just it's so much, and he still manages to keep going.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of blood for this one as well. As fair saying, is it fair to say Darby Allin's the modern dating Jeff Hardy? I would say it's a good comparison.
Yeah, I would say like as far as like the risk taking, I could definitely see modern day Jeff Hardy. I would say as far as just like crazy like falling off of like high points, you could also maybe say modern day like TNA Kurt Angle, just because of like how many crazy dives he was doing, like off the stage, off the cage, and just like
Mhm.
a lot of times also crashing and burning. It's just
Mhm.
a lot that goes into the way Darby wrestles, and he leaves it all in the ring, which is always commendable.
Yeah, that's very true. Right after this is where we keep going with the theme of meeting me and slapping me, as if it was chanted by the audience tonight. Hops versus Miro. This was definitely another one that even Excalibur said in the comments, like, big meaty man slapping me. And I was like, even this is going to AEW at this
Yeah,
point.
I will say at first when I heard the meat chants, I thought Sean Stasiak was in the ring, so it's just, I thought they were paying
Mhm.
homage to the Pretty Mean Sisters back in the WWF days, but no, it
Mhm.
was just because we had Miro and
Yeah.
Hobbs going back and forth in a really good match that I enjoyed, and kind of crazy to see like how it progressed and seeing Miro have to really try for the game over twice to get the win, and then what would end up happening after the match with the debut of CJ Perry, formerly Lana, and still seeing a little bit of continuity between CJ and Miro of how things played out on TV and WWE with the divorce and the adultery angle to really show like, oh no, there's still something there that we're going to acknowledge before we just go
Mhm.
back to my hot, flexible Russian wife. But yeah,
Yeah.
this was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it has I know Goody, the biggest wrestling debut ever. I was distracted by like the entrance theme at the towards the background. It says hot and flexible, and I was like, who the heck is this gonna be? And it didn't cross my mind about CJ because I didn't think she was gonna join AEW. But
Honestly,
what I did
same.
notice, I just crossed it off my list. I didn't think that was gonna happen at all. And then another thing to it is like usually it says people's name in the entrance video, but she didn't have a name towards her. So I wonder if she's not gonna go by CJ or Lana and she's trying something different,
Well,
and
they
that's what
also
I makes me
haven't
wonder.
finalized it because they didn't say a name on commentary. They didn't say
Mhm,
it during that backstage that they had on social media.
mhm. It
It's
was just the
just,
wife, the
yeah, I
version.
don't know what they're gonna brand her as. She didn't get an all elite graphic yet, but it's
Mhm,
just crazy to like have like this clear element of she's there, but what is she going to be doing there? Like, is she actually
yeah,
going to wrestle? Is she going to go back to being mostly a manager? Is it just for a one-time storyline kind of thing? Is she's per
mhm.
appearance? So there's still a lot that's left on open for whatever's going to come in the next few weeks. Although I'm definitely going to miss the whole dancing on a chair theme that she had back in WWE.
Mhm. Because I one thing that I liked about it too is like towards the end after we have Miro winning, Hobbs takes over him. That's when he gets distracted by Lana's CJ's music, and then she comes to the ring with a chair, going to attack him, and she does hit him from behind. But then it gets Miro the opportunity to get grab the chair, hit him as well. But I like it wasn't just like a happy ending sort of thing. It was like, here, I'm gonna hug my wife, I'm gonna kiss her like in front of the audience, something like that. That was like a cute, happy ending. He said something to her about her being there because I believe it was like a couple weeks ago. He had a promo saying that he didn't want his wife to see him without gold. It was something along those lines. So we get that
Hmm.
storytelling there as well, which I thought was interesting. Of like, and then he said something to her, and I forgot what it was exactly. But then he just left the ring and left her standing in the ring by herself, which is something that I was not expecting from her debut happening tonight as well. So I think this was interesting to see going back to what he always said is like my hot wife, and she even included that in the entrance video too.
Yeah. Definitely going to be interesting to see how things play out. I don't know if it's going to be mostly on Collision like it has been lately with Miro, or kind of just with everything going on. If anyone's fair game for any show now.
Yeah, so far they have only used her social media, CJ Perry, because that's how they're tagging her, and that's what her social media handles are. But even the entrance in itself didn't say Lana, didn't say CJ Perry, nothing like that. So right now she's just nameless, I guess, which is the awkward thing for a debut, to be honest. And it's like I know what I liked about it was the crowd chanting CJ at her, but obviously they just they didn't say a name to her during commentary or anything
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, but and this is the part that was definitely not surprising for me. I even messaged to you as it was happening. I said, "Well, it's close to 9:30. The women are happening. What a great, even on a pay-per-view."
Yeah, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is. The women are going to be on at 9:30, or if it's on Rampage, 10:30.
Yeah, it's like close enough. It's like it was about 9:24, I believe, or 23 when I
Yep.
sent you the message. And I thought, well, at the time you go, they said women are happening now. It's almost 9:30. It had to happen. We had Chris Statlander versus Ruby Soho. Ruby has to react with her at ringside. Yeah, this is another one that I really enjoyed. I'm glad they had at least decent time to show off what they could. Definitely, I think the part that really stood out as probably is to anybody at this point. We had Saraya being a distraction at ringside, doing several times, even getting in there and going after Chris Statlander as Ruby has the referee distracted. But all of a sudden, we get Tony coming from under the ring after the match had been happening for quite a while at this point. So her coming from under the ring, and then she goes kind of after. She kind of jumps around Saraya, but then she goes over to Ruby, and she jumps. She does a little. Her jump is so weird. I seen the close up of the video of the way she jumped. It was so hard the way she did it. But her jumping towards Ruby, taking the hairspray that is spraying, and it's like, "You're not having this." And it was enough distraction for Ruby to get pinned by Chris. Definitely showing a lot of progression with this one too, with the Outcast now that Soraya has the World Championship, which is something that Tony has won, and then Tony has shifted her character because of her recent loss, and then going, "You're not gonna win a championship either if I'm not." So this breakup between the acts definitely that's something that has been interesting because I was definitely still hoping that we'll have some kind of match between like them as a group versus three other faces to kind of close off the chapter between the faces and the outcasts before something like this happened. But just like no, we're just gonna have to go against each other at this point. Um, but yeah, I mean, just interesting thinking of Tony being involved there and Saria getting upset, and I know she ended up leaving Ruby in the ring by herself too. So
Yeah.
we're basically seeing the beginning chapters of that outcast breakup now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Chris and Ruby always have great chemistry. I like how much time they were able to get in, like all the different near falls they had. I mean, Ruby literally hit Chris with every finisher she had between the Destination Unknown and the No Future, and having like a 2.99 count. But like, I really am curious to see like how they're gonna keep this aloof, like kind of crazy, like Marilyn Monroe as Tony
Mhm.
Storm going. But it seems like the next match that we're going to see is probably going to be a three-way between the former members of the Outcast, probably at Wrestle Dream for Saraya's World Championship. And it's going to be interesting to see if Saraya holds on to it or what happens with it. Maybe it could be something where Ruby finally wins the big one. And I mean, I would be interested to see what a Saraya reign is going to look like, if it's going to be a long-term one or if it just happened to be one of those things where like you had to get that moment in Wembley, like the 9 year
Mhm.
like return after a career ending injury in front of your family getting involved in the match. That was a great moment, but definitely a good TBS title match. I wish it wasn't the only women's title match on the show before we got it. Was a really fun one. And then Chris bringing it home after Tony went rogue with the green spray with the Sunday Night Fever. So I'm realizing that they just say whatever day of the week it is that Chris is wrestling for her finisher now. But yeah, no, Mama won and still champion. So
Yeah, and this is another one of those moments that it has so many close calls too that even though I had a feeling that Statlander was not gonna lose, they still give me think they have me at the edge of my seat thinking Ruby's gonna win it. So I heard Soraya being in her corner. I kept thinking, the distraction's gonna help her somehow. I was not expecting Tony to come out and cause all the mess that she did towards the end. But yeah, we definitely seeing a little the progression here. So I wonder if it's going to be Soraya versus Tony, or if it's going to be, like you said, a three-way, but it's still something interesting to think about moving forward. I just definitely wish it hadn't been around 9:30. Like, that's the only thing. It's like,
yeah,
why? It was so
it's
close to it.
triggering.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I
it does
agree.
open up the TBS title picture again. So if it's gonna be like Mercedes going back after Diamante, or maybe getting other women in the mix that we really haven't seen in a while. I mean, we who knows what Jade Cargill's up to because she hasn't been seen in a while. If she would get a
Mhm.
rematch, perhaps, or if she has to kind of grind her way back to the TBS title or even the women's world title, who's to say? But definitely interested to see what developments we can get with the women's division AEW, and hopefully more than one match show.
Let's not
Please.
hold out for too long. I was like,
I think it's only
you never
happened
know.
once in almost 4 years, and
Mhm.
it's not okay. Come on, Tony Khan, please.
No, I wrote about it. And I even said from the
Yeah,
get-go, it's like you have to give the woman the opportunity to open the show, be in the middle of the show, be on the end of the show. Just don't put them
yeah.
around between 9 and 9:30. No, just stay away from that time frame, please.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna have two women's championships, you need to have some sort of presentation for both of them, especially if you're gonna have one be named after the network of your flagship show, and that champion is appearing on the TNT show. What's the reason?
No reason whatsoever. It is what it is. Next up we have Brian Danielson versus Ricky Starks. It was strap match. This was definitely another one that was like, holy crap. Daniel definitely killed it with this one. One thing that hit me, I had to mention it here. During the 0 hour, yeah, he had like a little promo. He said, "Last time I faced someone in a strap match, it was somebody that I loved, and it's going back to that match with the Fiend." And just like that moment, there was like, "I don't want to think about
Yeah.
this anymore. Let's not talk about it, please, Brian." Um, but no, there was several moments. There was at one point he did the LaBelle lock where he was choking him with, with the belt, and even the ending in itself, just the way Ricky has, all the blood in his face.
Mhm.
He's getting choked by the strap, and he's in the LaBelle lock going back, and you see his eyes like pop off the way they did. I was definitely scared when this spot happened towards the end of it. But we had even moments of like Big Bill coming in here to hurt to help Ricky Starks at one point, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat being in commentary is like, no, this is not happening here. And I like having Ricky Starks join in with Bill there too, and even Brian just diving onto them with a crossbody. And even Brian having that moment at the end with Ricky Steamboat as they were going up the ramp too. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a lot of like a bloody mess. But just that ending and that visual of Ricky Starks'
Oh my god.
face expression, that definitely killed me during this match. I don't want to see that again after that.
Such a violent match for sure. It's just crazy to think that for starters, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Once again, we got Final Countdown. So
Yeah.
Tony Khan said, "Okay, you got it once at Forbidden Door. We'll do it again just because we've allocated some new funds now. Uh, some uh, some room in the budget has been made for licensing. You're good for it." But this match was as violent of a strap match as I have ever seen. I mean, just hearing the impact every time that leather was hitting flesh, like seeing the way that they were using it around the ring post, and just there was no way that strap was not used as a weapon or as a tool to tell the story of the match. But golly, it was very, very good. I do think it would have been interesting to see Ricky Starks win, but all things considered, what a return for Danielson in this match. Although I did see in the chat, Ed Fry says Final Countdown is such an overrated song. I would have to agree. I mean, as a
Mm.
rib, I would love to see them do like the pitch perfect version of Final Countdown, like maybe just to see what Brian's reaction would be. And just
Oh
be like,
my god.
hey, licensing was cheaper, just go with it.
And especially saying I would have loved to see Ricky win this one. I definitely felt the same way. I had a moments of like I saw this match as like as a way for him to shine and really get showcased differently. And at the end, I was hoping he would win the match. And once I saw Big Bill getting the distraction there for Brian, then I thought this is it. He's gonna win it. But yeah, I think that definitely would have been better to elevate the younger talent in this type of match. But I figure with Steamboat being there, we'll probably give Brian that moment with Steamboat towards the end. Is probably why it ended up happening to begin with. Um, it might be an overrated song, but I do like having the crowd sing along with him as it happens, though. Especially towards the end, he went up the ramp and then he knew that it was coming, so he just let the crowd sing it before he left. I definitely like having that moment here with the crowd just singing along to him. But it makes me also miss his theme song because I like his regular theme song though,
Yeah, I
and it makes me
actually do
miss it
like
though.
Force of Greatness, like how it like has like the hint of like the fight of the bumblebees, but like the Remax is actually like really good, and like everyone talks about throwing ass to it. But yeah, I feel like AEW when it comes to licensing theme music has been like kind of refreshing to hear like actual songs. Do I wish like we could have other people use actual songs? Yes, but it's very curious to see who they have so far. I mean, they definitely have Wild Thing. They'll do Final Countdown on occasion. Soria comes out to Zombified, which is her boyfriend's band song. Athena has the Athena song that she uses in Ring of Honor. So very curious to see I mean, Jane with Orange Cassidy. So very curious to see like what song you would match with someone on the roster, and hopefully it happens.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely like that. The only thing like I said, is like for me, it's the final countdown is having that moment with the
But
crowd, like
evaluate.
singing along. And then, as Ed is saying, it's like we need less sing-alongs in wrestling. No, we don't. I love doing it, especially when I'm in my house and I can just scream to my lungs out and nobody tells me anything. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Um, but no, after this, we had Eddie Kingston and Shibata going against Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. Holy crap, the way Shibata started hitting Wheeler Yuta during this match. I don't know how he survived it.
I mean, Wheeler Yuta can take a beating, as we've
Yeah,
seen.
he
Like,
did.
it's just you want a match that's just like hitting as hard as you can for the sake of hitting as hard as you can. This is one of those matches. Obviously, somehow still not the hardest hitting match on of the card, but it definitely
Mhm.
felt like very personal because they played into like the whole
Mhm.
Kingston Castagnoli drama and like really trying to like showcase like how much has changed between like the pure title picture and Wheeler losing the title to Shibata and just really kind of going back and forth and the sudden victory from a European uppercut of all things
Mhm.
that Nigel McGuinness made a huge thing about. Just like,
Mhm.
no, like they were putting in the heavy lumber. So it would make sense that someone getting hit as hard as they were by Claudio, that would be decisive.
Yeah, and another thing about this match is like there were so many moments between Claudio and Eddie just outside of the match, not even in the match in itself, because we had at one point Claudio just driving Eddie to the barricade and even at ringside too, just taking care of him in that aspect and like going back to the ring. And you can see even from the get-go because it was a Terry Funk tribute with the shirt that Eddie had on. He has Claudio sucks eggs. Let's see what's to ringside tonight as well. So we had definitely had a like, even though this was a tag team match, it definitely felt like it was a tag team match. And then we had the outside Eddie versus Claudio happening there as well. And they had so many spots written by the commentary table too. One of my favorite ones though and overall in the match was then Shibata had Wheeler on a submission, but then Claudio came over here. He had him in an ankle lock for just a minute there. So he definitely had both of them in a submission at the same time.
Mhm.
I definitely love the visual that we had there from both of them. Um,
Or when Claudio and Eddie were like trading strikes and just trying to do a slap fight.
oh yeah. And that's fair saying how it feels with real Irish wrestlers. I am with Eddie Kingston. um, and Ed going. It's just great to see Shibata wrestling after everything he went through. I liked having those moments too, where like at the beginning when Eddie's just telling him directions. It was like, "Here, we have racing our championships. You gotta look that way." He turned around, he looked that way the same way Eddie did. So Eddie was definitely redirecting
Yeah.
him as this was happening. But overall, it just felt like like we had the tag team match inside the ring, but then a singles match outside of the ring between both
Yeah.
of these, and it's still not the end because by the way it's happening, it's definitely not the end between Claudio and Eddie. And as you said, it was that moment of like the ending it with an uppercut of almost. It's definitely one that, but definitely not expected when it happened, and definitely highlighted that in commentary too.
Yeah, maybe a Grand Slam will finally get that singles match.
Yeah, I feel like this is never ending. At this point, how long has this been going on?
I mean, just like this pay per view, how long has this been going on?
For too long. Definitely for too long. Um, yeah. Next up, we had Kenny Omega versus Takeshita. Holy crap, this match is another one. What I liked about it today is that I feel like I'm not saying AW is bad, but I feel like the talent really stepped out today and like there was no bad match tonight during the pay-per-view. I
I
just wish it
agree.
had been as long though as it was. That's a different story. But I feel like no match was bad whatsoever. They had so many different spots and the crowd was still, even for so long, the crowd was so awake and always chanting something during the match, which is something that I liked about it. They were very active and awake during the whole time. And I was like, I don't know how they did it, but they actually did it and it made
Mhm.
me more interested in the show in itself.
And
But
this was my match of the night. Like it
I
was
don't blame you.
phenomenal. I think it's just
Mhm.
the storytelling because you had Don Callisto on the outside, the callback with the
Yeah.
screwdriver getting stuck into the canvas, seeing all the different ways that they were trying to outmaneuver each other. Takeshita really trying to match Kenny strike for strike. It almost looked like they were going for one winged angel from the turnbuckles and how it didn't end up panning out. But it's also very significant that Takeshita won clean.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, definitely expect that clean win. I like how they also highlighted that during commentary as well. This is, I think, the second time he wins over Kenny, and this one happens to just be clean as well. This is one that even though I feel like it could have gone either way, I just being that it's Kenny, I just expected Kenny to win and not Takeshita. So when he won, I was like, shoot. And I don't think the song definitely didn't help because I feel like usually people are are like screaming or like chanting something when the music happens, and then when the music happened for this one, people were just quiet. So I don't know if they would like realize that the Keshka have one, or if it's just a theme song that made them feel this sort of way. But definitely, I like one of those spots that definitely like I couldn't get off my mind was that moment when Kenny just goes over and just tells the fans to get out of the way and jumps on the barricade to jump over to Keshka there. And we have moments of like Don Callis had to be involved as well, being that he's at ringside and he
yeah.
started putting this like stack of chairs on top of Kenny's chest as Takeshika just did like a little senton, I believe it was, onto him as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and even
Yeah.
before that, when Takesha's doing like that Saito suplex where Kenny literally lands vertically,
Oh yeah, the next spot. Woof.
that was so scary. And the fact that he was selling it and still just going and not missing a single beat.
Yeah, I saw the little replay, like a little slow motion of it, and that's what I could see it better. Holy crap, that when I just saw it happen, it's like, I don't want to see that again. I just kept scrolling on Twitter. I definitely want to see that as it happens. Uh, but yeah, it just they have such a great storytelling because being that they kept mentioning in commentary too, it's like, oh, Kenny has lost another singles match, and since he doesn't have Don Callis in his corner, not to catch Chris winning, more than anything. So I like the storytelling that we have between them. It's like being a pay per view like All Out, was not expecting Kenny to lose, so it definitely does
Yeah.
have a highlight in it itself that it happened there too.
And they're also telling the story of the wear and tear that he had from when he was world champion too, and like kind of like how many surgeries he had to be able to come back, and just how it seems like his bump counter is getting to capacity. So I don't know if they're hinting like maybe a stipulation where if he loses, he might retire, or if he's just going to start transitioning away from like really wrestling full time into more of a backstage role. But that definitely does make me wonder what's going to happen next, just because now it seems like they have finally resolved everything with the Callus storyline.
Yeah. And then after this, we have Bullet Club Go, Juice Robinson, and Ed's favorite person, Jay White, versus the Guns, and the Guns versus FTR and the Young Bucks. This was definitely the moment that I have been waiting all night because I knew the Punk chants were definitely going to happen during this match. And the crowd definitely went out on this too. We had a lot of mixed reactions when the Punks came out too, so it's something that I
Yeah.
expected. And I felt like it went even a step higher when FTR came out too. And it definitely, when the entrances were done, you could definitely hear the chants more than anything, especially when the Bucks were in the ring. You could definitely hear all those Punk chants that I
Yeah,
definitely expected out of Chicago.
it was so weird because there were Punk chants, then there were Young Buck chants, then there were asshole chants, and then like there were people trying to start chants and getting shot down. It was just, woo wee. It was a visceral crowd, but I mean, considering everything that happened in the last 48 hours and the match that ended up taking place, I think by the end of it, they did ultimately win over the crowd, and it was a really good 8-man tag. Although I did not expect it to end the way it ended. So I mean, we of all people that would end up getting the pin, it was Colton Gunn.
Yeah, definitely didn't have that on my bingo card.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
ultimately it did come from Jay hitting the switch. Was it the switchblade or the blade runner or whatever the
yeah,
move is?
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it had everything. You had like the odd couple tag team moves where you had, I think it was Nick and Dax doing the Shatter Machine. Like there was a super kick party between FTR and the Bucks. Like it was very much like it makes sense why they worked, even though they shouldn't have worked as a tandem. But
Yeah.
ultimately, they didn't end up winning the match. It would be Bullet Club Gold that did end up taking it home. But it is interesting to see kind of where they go from here, not only with the tag team titles, but just kind of like the okay, now we have the elephant in the room that's already been addressed of FTR being CM Punk's buddies and very much not really with the elite. And now that one person's been removed from the scenario, who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, and one thing that I liked about the beginning of this match too was that sequence that was happening towards the beginning of the match between Cash and Colton. And I like how they mentioned that Colton is the one with the least experience out of everybody in the whole match. But then he went all out with Cash at the beginning of it here, and even throughout the match. And this was another one that has so many close calls. Every time you think the match is over and they got somebody pinned, somebody would come from the other team and break it away. And it's like so much of that back and forth. And even I know we had a lot of FTR towards the beginning of the match, but then when Matt tags himself in, that's when we start hearing all the boos and the
Yeah.
punk chants and everything. And he starts tagging Nick in when they do have their double team move and they're on fire. They start cheering and going towards the crowd, and that's when the crowd kind of changed perspectives a little bit. I know a couple people that were saying they were chanting for the Bucks that this was happening,
I
and
mean,
a lot of certain section.
Matt was still doing the victory lap thing, which I think is still kind of really immature. Like, regardless of like who
Mhm.
you think was in the right or wrong, it's just
Yeah.
it's not a good look. I don't know why that was still happening even the day after. But I mean, the match did have a lot of good like close spots and everything, but it was very much interesting how they did foreshadow with Colton being the least experienced and he would be the one to get the decision.
Yeah. Another spot that I actually like to was everybody from FTR, the Bucks, had everybody from Bullet Club Gold and the Sharpshooter right in the middle of the ring. And then commentary goes, "Who's the legal man?" I just wanted to go, "Who cares at this point?" Because look at the
Yeah.
spot, how cool it looks from the bird's eye view.
Yeah, visually it was cool, although I will say like one very minor nitpicky thing that I don't know if
Mhm.
anyone else picked up on, but when everyone's like one each turnbuckle and the refs kind of count like, okay, get out of the ring, he started counting past 5 to 6, which is just you don't I don't think anyone's ever had like a 10 count for a ref to get out of a ring in a tag match. But you could tell like they were stalling because like you can't end this in a disqualification. It's just like, no, this isn't the finish. I'm just gonna keep making it seem
Mhm.
like I know what I'm doing. But just like that was the one odd thing where like if you really paid attention, it's like, huh?
Yeah, but this match is definitely the one that I would say the word one word to explain it was definitely a lot of chaos because there was a lot of chaos between both teams. It
Yeah,
not
you're
only
right.
not only inside the ring but outside the ring as well. And even at the end when that's when FTR starts going off on the Bucks for losing. And I think Nick was telling one of them was like, I was late. And you can see the frustration between all of them. And so it's another thing that thinking of the Bucks losing two pay-per-views in a row like this is something that I did not expect at all.
And I keep forgetting we have Grand Slam on top of Wrestle Dream on top of Full Gear. So like there is a lot of big match at AEW that's going to be coming up in the few weeks. So it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen at Arthur Ashe, what's going to happen on pay per view. But yeah, I mean that match was chaos personified to a T. So
Yeah. And our main event, which is definitely the first time that we don't have, I don't want to say the first time that we don't have a world title like main eventing, but this is definitely one that was a highlight in that sort of way. I know Orange Cassidy has been highlighting and I've been uplifting the way the international championship has been to the AEW audience. So to have him of all people be the main event, he said it's the first time he's a main eventing in AEW pay-per-view as well. I definitely feel like even though he's been on his own highlighting and uplifting the championship, I feel like having it as the main event did help. Especially on top of it, having somebody like John Moxley, who's the main eventer, challenging for this championship of all of them here as well. Um, this was one of them that I definitely like the storytelling between both of them as well. In those moments of like, we had even Moxie kind of mocking OC with like putting his hand in his pockets, just like kind of go after me, and Orange just like barely standing there with the blood on his face too. But again,
yeah,
this was another one that was so hard hitting. That was just like incredible. Like definitely like one of the best matches of the night too.
yeah, I will say this match definitely felt like it was like a kind of like a recognition of Orange Cassidy
Yeah.
really just like making something out of the international championship, the All Atlantic Championship, whatever they had named it before. But just showing that there is a place for like a really solid mid card championship to not feel like a mid card championship, kind of like how like the good old days of the Intercontinental Championship in WWE, where like it made sense if it did main event a pay per view. Like I'm thinking like No Mercy 2016, that match between Miz and Dolph Ziggler, and how emotional and like how hard fought that was. But this was definitely Moxley bringing Cassidy into like his world, like immediately going like bloodthirsty. He's like, no, like you're gonna main event, you're gonna do it my way, you're gonna get color, you're
Yeah.
gonna like be taking all these crazy high impact moves, him tearing up the floor and trying to drop him on his head, and ends up turning into something where Moxley ends up going like back first on the concrete, and just seeing like how Cassidy's like trying to navigate the blood loss, the adrenaline, like multiple Superman punches, trying to like outmaneuver Moxley, and just ultimately he would succumb. But I mean, if I had to go out after an over 320-day reign as a champion, I mean, I did my best work. I went to my absolute physical limits against the winningest person in AEW and a three-time world champion. Like, there's no shame in a loss to John Moxley, especially when you elevated yourself to such a standard to be able to close out in one of the biggest venues that AEW runs on the calendar for one of the biggest shows of the year. It really was kind of a career highlighting moment for Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a great way to showcase Orange Cassidy, uplift him, and show us a different side of him tonight that we saw with Moxie. But like I said, it's in the process of not only showcasing himself, but like showcasing and uplifting that championship. And it definitely showed out just by having the championship main event in the show set of a world title at this point. Definitely something that I'm glad they did, that it was a championship that was different to main event the show. And even at the end, as he's trying to get, out of the ring, we get the crowd chanting "Thank you, Orange," because he definitely highlighted himself so well in the last couple of months. It's just incredible that I never thought I would end up like Orange Cassidy, but he definitely won me over with the way he did with his championship reign. And I think it became like it's gonna become like a standard of like going forward for that championship now because of his reign too. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. What a way to close out the show. And like we said, it's been a long show. I'm sleepy, but you don't have to be sleepy when you're watching any of these shows. So what you could do next time, you can scan the QR code that's right beside Jose, and you can scan to get 10% off when you use the code OLE Pots and Rogue Energy, because I am very sleepy and I'm glad I don't work tomorrow. Because if not, I definitely would have thought the show to begin with if I work tomorrow, because it was definitely a long one, which I should
Mhm.
have expected it, but still, it's AEW.
Yeah.
But yeah, I figured this was the end of the show. But before we head on and have some breaking news that Jose has for all of us here tonight, I will show off the calendar what we have for the rest of the week. Then what, Ellie? Oh, there we go. That's what we have for the week here in OLE. So too bad I don't have the breaking news. I can steal it from the boys today, but we figure you have some breaking news, and not only that, we had also your socials on the ticker going on through the
Yes.
night. So where can the people find you, and what are your breaking news for tonight?
Let me see if I have a good breaking news sound effect. I mean, we'll go with this. Oh wait, no,
Yes.
that's not the sound. There.
There
That's our
you
breaking
go.
news sound effect. It's Plankton playing the tube. But yes, so I mean, obviously, find me on all my socials, Jose on the air. I do have one podcast currently, Content with Creation, where I highlight various different content creators and their own journeys.
Mhm.
Astrid has been a guest on it, but I do have another podcast that is coming out that's going to be my fully dedicated to wrestling interviews again. It is called My Guest at This Time. It is coming in the next month or so, so be on the lookout on social media.
Mm.
But looking forward to having some kind of good dedicated wrestling programming again. It's been a long time, and I think I'm at a point where I'm ready to really be able to kind of just see how things go. So yeah, be on the lookout for My Guest at This Time
Yes.
in the coming weeks.
Ooh, that's Edison. Ooh, sounds fun. Yeah, it definitely is. If you haven't seen it, you definitely go back and watch the other episode that you have on YouTube channel, as it said there, Jose on the air. It definitely has a lot of great content. It has interviewed so many great people. I had to say it. I had to put my Puerto Rican shirt on for the two Puerto Ricans on the stream today. There we
Yeah, I was
go.
gonna say mine's a Eddie Guerrero shirt, so close enough.
Yes. For me, you can find me as it's in there, my threads, and at Instagram is Astrid Pizarro 20. Sky Blue, I was gonna say Sky Blue. Blue Sky X is Astrid Pizarro. And as they mentioned earlier, we had at the MLW, also the MLW, keep calling the wrong name, tailgate party. There we go. That was on our list. If you want to go ahead and watch that, because that's another show that happened tonight as well, because something that's been happening lately. Two shows in one day. But no, I released my blog earlier today on my YouTube channel. You can watch that as well there. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to OLE on, especially on YouTube. We have a lot of great content going on over there too, aside from Twitch. So if you miss anything, definitely go back on YouTube and watch it. We have also released the newest episode of Killer Cuts talking about Wes Craven's Red Eye. So Bobby and I reviewed that recently, so it's also on the YouTube channel there as well. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for answering by call and doing the show with me, even if it was at the almost last minute, but it really wasn't at the same time. But it was a lot of fun to discuss it here with you tonight and just have you doing a show with me as well.
Yeah, worked out great. It's always good getting to catch up with you on the air. So, I mean, it was a great pay
Mm.
per view overall. So, I had a lot to say, and I'm glad that it ended up working out the way it did.
Yeah, you did. But no, I want to thank everybody for watching and thank you, Jose, for being here with me tonight. But we'll see you next time. I believe it's tomorrow now with the Raw Watch Along. So see you then.